Hi everybody out there. I'm Tab, in case we haven't met yet. I can't wait until we have an opportunity where we can do this in person, but for now, I guess this is the best we can do. So here we go. So welcome to art journaling. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being here. We're going to go through 8 good for the soul single page art journal designs that I have come up with that will hopefully bring some kind of peace and serenity to your life in this crazy time that we are living right now. My little experiment called art journaling for the soul. Thank you again for being here. I am super happy to be sharing these things with you, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hi guys, so you're back for more, I see, and I am so grateful for that. I should go back and add that to my last page, that I'm grateful for you being here. So we are marking this as being like the halfway point. Once we finish this one, we have 4 left to go, so 4 down, 4 to go. As you can see, I'm wearing the same clothes as last time, so I was able to actually get 2 of these done in one day. I can't even believe it. That never happens. But today I'm feeling especially energetic, apparently, and I am going to push on and get another one in there. So today's is going to use a couple of special tools, I guess. Well, not super special, but we're going to use acrylic paint. We're going to use a stencil. So pick out a stencil that you like if you ordered some. If you didn't order any stencils, you can totally do this page without any stencil work. Not a huge deal. We're going to basically be using Sharpies, acrylic paints, the stencil, and what else? I'm going to teach you guys how to draw ribbons today. So today's page is called How Can I Be a Giver? Okay, so it's the season of giving. How can I be a giver? So we're going to start thinking about what ways we can give back. Today is the beginning of December, and I think that that's a really good time to start thinking about how I can give of myself. Being a giver doesn't always have to mean you're giving someone a gift. It can just be you being giving of yourself and being open to people, and how can you keep that frame of mind? How can you keep that mindset? I know that there are things that I tend to do, that I close up and I clamp up and I shut people out, and there are times when I'm really open, and I want to really focus with this page on how do I keep myself open to people. So that's going to be my main goal here for this one. Here we go. We're going to open up our journals to a clean page, or as clean as you can find page, and I am going to kind of, I guess, get ready to do a frenzy of a background, but I do want to keep it somewhat light because the drawing of the ribbons over top is, we want to be able to see our pencil lines. We don't want to have to draw them really dark in case we mess up, so we want to be able to sketch them really lightly. So I want to keep my background somewhat light. Now, if you want to choose to do holiday colors, you can, but please don't feel restricted by that. Don't feel trapped by holiday colors. I am going to be doing some pinks and reds in my background, and I'm going to generally put my ribbons on there in greens and blues, but which will kind of be holiday colors, but don't feel that, don't feel trapped by that whole thing. So I'm going to use a lot of white on my palette today because I do want to keep my colors kind of light for when I do put the ribbons on, because I don't want to have to struggle to see my pencil lines, because I want to keep those really light. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of pink, a little bit of red, so I get a little bit of a variety of the pinks that I'm going to have in the background here. And then I'm going to just grab the whatever flat brush you'd like, but I want it to be somewhat small because I want to be able to have lots of little clusters of different shades, and the bigger the brush, the more blended it will all become, and I want to have a lot of texture, as much texture as I can have with these really light colors. So I'm going to get my brush wet, and I like to start with just white on my paper. So when I put white down first, and then I start to grab a little bit of pink, and I just kind of go around that, and you can kind of see I'm doing like a really frenzied kind of brush stroke, like no rhyme or reason to it. I'm just kind of almost scribbling back and forth with my brush. So I'm just gonna kind of water this paint down, and I'm just gonna start getting all crazy with my brush strokes, and I'm just scribbling all over the place. And where it runs into that pure white, well, it's gonna blend into a lighter color. I like to start with pure white too, because it gets me warmed up without any kind of consequence. So I know I'm painting, but I can't really see what I'm painting yet, but it kind of gets my hand and my wrist kind of ready to paint. So I'm gonna just kind of switch to, you know, some red every once in a while. I'm dipping my brush in water every once in a while because I do want this to be pretty blendy or liquidy kind of, so that I can really kind of smush these colors together. Okay, so I've chosen for today some polka dot stencils, and so what I'm going to do is just going to lay them on there. I'm going to grab my baby white out of the package, and you might need a couple for this. That's totally fine. And instead of adding paint, I'm going to now take it away. So I'm just going to kind of rub my baby white over the stencil, and this will be a somewhat subtle effect depending on how long you waited, right? So if you you know, laid your paint down and then you're like, oh crap, my baby wipes are downstairs in the cupboard or whatever, and you had to go all the way down and get them, and you come back and try to do this, it's going to be less effective because your acrylic has then been given all that time to dry. It's not going to be a super intense effect. Okay, so even if I hold this up there, you can barely even tell that it's going on, but I kind of like that. You know, it just kind of gives it a little bit of something without it being too much. So now we want this to dry, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you guys how to do these ribbons. Here we go. We have our plain white paper. I'm going to demonstrate on here. If you guys have a piece of printer paper laying around, grab that so you can practice this. So what we're talking about here is when we draw ribbons that kind of turn and twist and curl up and do all kinds of things. So we're basically going to start with a single line, and that is going to determine what is your ribbon actually doing. Okay, so is it going to, you know, have any kind of wave to it? Okay, so I'm going to draw that kind of darker so you can see it on the camera. Okay, so does it have any kind of twist to it? So a simple twist can happen on just a simple line like this. So basically what you'll want to do is you'll want to determine the width of your ribbon, and you'll want to stay faithful to this width. Okay, so as you're traveling with your line, you want to stay that width. Okay, now the way that you make twists happen is here. You let that width twist over to the other side but then we quickly get back to that width on the other side and stick to that width to the end of your ribbon. Okay, so let's say that that's the edges of our ribbon. We have a twist happening right here. Okay, we see this X. Now, when you have an X in your ribbon, it never actually does that. You need to decide how is it flipping. So what that means is basically we have to then connect the top of this ribbon to the top of where it ends its twist. Okay, so I'm just going to connect that with a kind of a line that you know, kind of goes along the ribbon, right? And then right here, now you have to make a decision. Which one of these two lines are you going to erase? It's up to you. You can make it happen either way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick one, okay, and I'm going to erase it. Okay, which this is the reason why we're drawing really light on our art journal page, because if we draw this dark on our art journal page, it's going to be impossible to erase this line. Okay, so I've erased that line, so now I have this ribbon that twists and continues, okay, and where it twists, it comes out the bottom and it does something like that. Okay, now this is where you would then throw some shadow, right, to show that it's twisting right there. Okay, so this can also be applied in something that is more ornate. Okay, so if I wanted to have a ribbon that's doing this, okay, I can start with that kind of line. I can let this cross over the line as many times as I want, as long as I'm kind of staying faithful to that width of the ribbon. Okay, let's say that it ends something like this and it starts something like that. Again, we see the X, we see the X. We have to decide. We have to connect those. Basically, you connect the two humps, okay? You connect the two humps with a line, okay? I'm going to connect these two humps with a line, okay? And then I have to decide which line I want to erase, because one of these has to go. One of these in this V that we've just made has to go. So I'm going to just make that decision. I'm going to go ahead and erase this one. And then I'm going to erase, let's say I'm going to erase this one. Okay? It doesn't even matter which one of the two lines you erase, it always makes sense. Okay, so now this ribbon is kind of doing a twirl. Okay, so we see that, you know, we can adjust the width of these. Like if the width isn't staying really perfect, you know, you can always adjust that, because you are going to be drawing these pretty light on your journal page. So I'll demonstrate a loop one real quick, so that we know how to do that. Okay, so if you do one that, let's say that it does, you know, something like this, and then we do a loop. Okay, so again, we're going to decide what width we're dealing with. Okay, so my ribbon, I want to try to stick to that width even when it crosses over. Let's try to stick back to that width. And every time you let it cross over, that means you're going to twist, okay, and you're going to connect those humps afterwards. I want to kind of get this width right, so I'm letting it twist again, letting it twist again, and then it's going to end down here. Okay, so I've got quite a few things going on here. I've got my two ends closed off. I have to now find the humps, okay, the humps that you have to connect. So I have one right here. Okay, I'm going to connect those. I have two of them right here. I'm going to connect those two. Okay, I have two right here. They're very kind of like wide because we're going around a loop, but I do need to connect them. Can't leave any humps just kind of hanging out there. And then I've got these two right here. Okay, so I want to connect those as well. Okay, now once you've connected the humps, you've got that V that you have to decide to erase one of the lines. So you're just going to go through and with every V that you see, okay, so right here, you're going to get rid of one of the two lines of the V. Okay, so I'm just going to pick and choose one of the two to get rid of. And then I'll have to kind of redraw some things. Okay, so once I have chosen which one stays and which one goes, I'm just going to clean up my drawing here. Okay, now we have this one little area where the ribbon, we have to decide, does this loop, does it go behind this part of the ribbon, or is it going to be in front? So we have to decide which two, is it going to be the two vertical lines that I'm going to erase, or is it going to be the two horizontal lines I'm going to erase? So again, I'm just going to pick one. So then that means that as this loops, it goes behind the first part of the loop there. Okay. And then that is where we have this looping, twisting and looping kind of rhythm. So if we were to be shading this, we would have all these shadows coming out from underneath of these twists and from underneath of where it overlaps. And I'm just putting lines here just to kind of indicate that this is where we would put some shadows. Okay, I'll just do some cross hatching real quick here. This final little area here. Okay, hopefully this ribbon tutorial kind of helped you, but basically you can do anything you want with a ribbon. Your ribbon can be any shape you want. You just have to be faithful to the width of your ribbon, and you have to recognize when you're twisting, when you're crossing over the first line, that you're going to have two humps that you have to connect with a line, and then you're going to have to erase something. So I'm going to go through the process of creating some ribbons here, and then I'm going to go ahead and start just writing my intentions on these ribbons and kind of explaining or making a promise to myself as to how I can be a giver this season. I'm just going to go ahead and outline these real quick. So now that you've got your ribbons kind of, outlined in your little Sharpie, your fine Sharpie, and you've got all of your pencil marks erased, we're going to paint in your ribbons kind of quickly, and depending on your comfort level with painting, don't feel like you have to really do a lot of shadowing and highlighting, but I will walk you through that so that hopefully you're more comfortable with that. So whatever, I would say, whatever you are, whatever colors you're trying to paint, always have, just doing a palette check here, I've got them laying everywhere. Always try to have black and white ready and around, so that you can quickly add a shadow or a highlight. So it always really kind of helps to have those just somewhere nearby in case you decide, I need to punch up that highlighter, I need to, intensify that shadow a little bit here and there. So I'm going to go ahead and use, like I said, I'm going to do like some greenish, bluish ribbons on top of my pink background. And so I don't want that to get too dark because I still want to be able to write over the paint with my Sharpie, with my my ideas on how I can be more of a giver this season. So I do want to keep it fairly light. I have put probably 10 times as much paint as I really need on my paint palette. I do this, I don't know why. So I always think that it's going to take way more, but I never learn. So I'm going to go ahead and start with just mixing my kind of bluish greenish that I like. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just take a stab at putting this on and seeing how intense this is. So okay, so right away I can kind of tell that yes, it's pretty dark, but it's not totally bad. Okay, so I'm just going to lighten it up just a little bit with some white and see if that's much better. Okay, so I'm just going to take my paintbrush and I'm just going to try to stay in the lines, but if you go outside the lines, you can always re-outline stuff at the end. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so here's where it gets tricky, is we've got this big honkin' flat brush. We are approaching an area that's getting really skinny, okay, where we're gonna need to get a smaller brush, but we also are gonna need to put some kind of shadow right in here, okay, because it's twisting. It's coming out of a little twist or a loop. So I'm gonna get as much of this in there as I can as like a flat color. And then I'll come back in with my round brush that can fit into that little area, and I'm going to do the best that I can to, blend a shadow in there. So I'm going to take my green and just add a little tiny bit of black so I can intensify kind of a shadow. So I'm just going to add a little bitty speck of it at a time, because you guys know it's going to make it turn really dark really fast. And I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to squeeze it into that little corner and then try to blend it out. Okay, so once I'm out into the open again where I can fit this big flat brush in there, then I'm going to try to blend it into the rest of my ribbon. So again, I'm going to need a shadow right here where it's getting overlapped, right, and on this other side. So I'm just going to get those shadows just kind of outlined in there. And then by the time I pull away from that little area a little bit, I should be able to fit my flat brush back in there with my color again. Okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and blend that out. Now, I've got this area that I need this to be really light against the shadow of the ribbon, so I want to be real careful about not just picking up my highlight color on my round brush, because I've got my shadow color on my round brush right now. So rinse it out, take the time to do that, and then get a little of this light color on there so you can really pinpoint and keep that nice and fine. Okay, so the thing about painting is you have to rinse your brush a lot, and you have to get used to just the right amount of paint on your brush. So here's where we want to be really kind of picky. Okay, let me focus this really quick here. So we want to be real picky about shadows right next to highlights, especially when we have a twist going on. We have to have the shadow butt up right against that highlight to make the twist believable, right? And we also have to have the shadow right up next to the highlights where we have something going underneath of something else. So this is like an overpass kind of ribbon. This is the underpass ribbon. The underpass has to be darker than the overpass because more light is going to hit the overpass ribbon. So you kind of have to be kind of picky and get to know like what areas would be shadowed. If I had a physical ribbon in front of me and I put one part on top of another part, which one would get the light? So once you guys get used to that, painting gets a little bit easier, and making things look realistic is going to be a little easier. Okay, but we're keeping most of our ribbon in just a flat color of your choice. So I've just added a little white to keep it on the lighter side, so when I write over top it's not too overpowered. you know, by the shadows. Okay, so the ribbons are finally painted. Took me a little while, but hopefully you can work through that. Just keep your two colors. So my paint palette, it has the main two, like, so the you know, the general ribbon color of the bluish green I'm using, and then a darker version of it. Trying to keep those two things separate, rinsing my brush in between them, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth a lot, just to try to get some kind of semblance of shadow and light on the ribbon. So keep practicing. It is something that does not come automatic. Just like with anything else, you have to keep practicing to get better at it, so keep practicing. I have kind of written out on the back of my ribbon practice my things that I want to write in here. So I'm going to go ahead and you know, choose a ribbon that's the right length to fit what I want to put in there. And so you can write these in there however you want. You can write really tiny in the center of your ribbon. You can write really big to be the width of your ribbon. It's really up to you. However you want to do it. You can pencil it in first to see that it fits. You know, just in case you don't want to drop off a word at the end. So I've got some that are pretty lengthy here, and I just want to make sure that they're going to fit. So I might actually pencil them in real quick first, and then, you know, not accidentally, you know, lose words here. So that's what I'm going to do. I kind of want to do this with my thick Sharpie, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll just run right into my details, because that's pretty much the end. We are, you know, setting our intention of how we can be more giving.